let's just go ahead and get started. And for those of you that are watching this live, go ahead and post your comments, post your questions. You're probably going to have questions, but you know, at the end of the day, we're always talking about Airbnb and short-term rentals. And as a lot of you know, in fact, I'll even share my screen here. We have a page that we recommend a lot of people go check out to get yourself diverse with different types of typically short-term rental exit strategies. It's fearlesskyle.com/pick your coach. I'm going to drop this in the link to, or in the comments. And Zach is actually our only coach on here that isn't Airbnb specific. And why did I do that? Why did I bring in Zach if he's not Airbnb specific? Well, all of these other guys that, you know, I love them all, TJ and Jesse and Mike, and everyone here is teaching you something specific about the short-term rental industry. What we're not teaching most of the time, though, is how to buy properties and how to do that in a way that you don't have to invest a ton of money, and you don't have to go through realtors, and you don't have to go through the MLS. And that's what Zach brings. And I especially feel like, Zach, for the next 18 to 24 months, the creative financing option for people is something that if they take it seriously, they can do some serious damage and go buy some more properties. So what we want to do today is, first of all, let's break down this deal. And second of all, if you guys are like, oh my gosh, I want to do more of those deals, all you have to go is to fearlesskyle.com/pick your coach, take the next step with Zach, and he can go ahead and start giving you all the details on how to work with him. And like I promised, I'm going to go ahead and just drop that in the comments here. So I see a few of you have jumped on. Go ahead and start dropping your questions as you see this. But Zach, just a quick background. I know we've had you on the podcast before, but you are with the Smart Real Estate Coaches. You want to just give a little background on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So me and my father-in-law, we own a company called Smart Real Estate Coach, or as many people know as Wicked Smart, as we're from New England. This whole thing really started with my father-in-law. He was a broker owner, a fix and flip, you name it. He did everything when it comes to real estate investing, and 2008 crushed him. So he needed to re-engineer the business, and this is what we ended up breaking down, which was creative financing. We certainly didn't make it up. What we did is we packaged it. We created a very specific process and system surrounding it, which ended up creating what we would call our trademark 3 payday system. And that's what we're going to be showing you in the breakdown. Myself, I was a bartender and personal trainer 8 years ago, and ended up making a dramatic shift in my life and got involved in creative real estate, and then eventually became the CEO here at Smart Real Estate Coach, where we teach people across the country exactly what we do, and we lock arms with them in order to do these types of transactions. But as I promised Kyle, we're going to keep the main thing today, though, as well. I understand short-term rentals is the bread and butter. But and a reason why I spend a lot of times on stages with people that you actually saw there on the coaches, because there are ways in order to acquire real estate, and I like to call it like the right way. There's ways in order to acquire real estate, but you don't have to go the traditional financing. Now, once you do that, you actually have the ability to exit however you'd like to exit. We exit typically through rent to own to create our 3 paydays. But you may hold this property now and do short-term rentals, like Kyle showed you here. But at the end of the day, what we really wanted to come together, me and Kyle, was to show you that there's other ways in order to acquire real estate. So we want to make sure that there's no deals left on the table when you're out there prospecting.
Yep.
And then also show you different ways in order to exit as well, in case it doesn't work for the metrics that Kyle has taught you so awesome. Eloquently when it comes to Airbnb and how the metrics work. Because on our end, we can then go ahead and sell it to a different buyer. So now you have multiple streams of income coming in a collaborative, in 2 collaborative niches in order to create that profile portfolio as you continue to grow it.
Awesome. Yeah. So you've got this deal right in Cape Cod, and I want to see how you're doing it. And then I also want to kind of put that short-term rental twist on it as we're looking at it together. So
yeah, 100%. If you don't mind, Kyle, I'll just flip through some slides here just real quick, because I just want to make sure that people, before they look at it, they know what they're talking about here. So when we're talking about creative financing, I just want to make sure when we're talking about everyone's clear. So that just means that we're not using banks, we're not doing large down payments, and we're not signing on properties, period. We've done thousands of deals now at this point in time. and nobody has ever pulled credit for me, never checked my credit portfolio, nothing.
Awesome.
And really, buying and selling on terms comes in 3 different ways. We won't dive through all these, but I'll highlight specifically the one that we're going to go over. So one way is owner financing. So you approach a seller that has a debt-free home, and you approach that seller, you acquire that asset, and the seller actually becomes your bank. Really great way in order to acquire real estate. Over a third of the properties in North America are debt-free. So these are sellers that are willing and able to become your bank. So great option there. Second one is subject to. This is the type of structure we're going to do here in this deal structure. And really what a subject to is when you go ahead and you approach a seller that has a mortgage or has debt on the property, but you close on it subject to the existing loan. Now, anybody that's been to a traditional closing, on the HUD statement, there's actually a section that says subject to. So that's where the existing loan would go. The mortgage would remain attached to the seller's credit. It does not get paid off, but the title transfers to your company. So now you have ownership. And our deals typically have no end date, meaning we're just going to make that mortgage payment until the end of time, until that's paid off. And I'm going to show you why that's important here in this next deal structure. So just briefly, sellers typically that sell to us want to maximize their profits. They look for debt relief, which is exactly the type of transaction we're going to talk about. Somebody need debt relief, or estate or tax planning purposes is why people typically would sell to us. Let me just walk you through because we're going to show you a three payday breakdown. Just wanted to see so you guys knew the terminology, so you're not blindsided with this deal. So the way we acquire real estate is we acquire creatively, and then we sell it creatively as well. So we tend to sell it through a rent-to-own program or owner financing, and that's what I'm going to show you. So our trademark 3 payday system happens when you acquire a property for a certain price, a certain monthly payment in a certain time frame. And then you're going to go and you're going to go sell it for a higher price, a higher monthly payment, and a certain time frame as well, which allows you to start creating a non-refundable deposit, which is your payday 1. If your payday 2 is the spread in which you create, so that's your monthly cash flow. You guys are used to that. And then payday 3 is the principal pay down or the equity that gets built in the home here as well. Our deals typically look like this. It's non-refundable deposits are about $26,000. Payday 2s are our cash flow is about $300 per month on average, and about $35,000 in total profits on the exit. I wanted to share with you guys this because I know that Kyle's going to share with you what it looks like from a Airbnb or short-term rental perspective as well.
And just to pause, and just so everyone understands, right? We're talking about not the acquisition, we're talking about the exit strategy. You've already acquired the property, and you've already created those terms with that owner. Maybe it was 0 down, maybe it was 5% down, maybe it was 10% down, whatever that looked like. And you've negotiated what that monthly payment's going to be. And now the numbers that we just saw are what you're making after you've already acquired it through this 3 payday system. So I just wanted to make sure that people understood that before we went too much further.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's look at what, and I know we're doing like fast, rapid New England style learn creative financing right now. So
it's a Cape Cod property. We have to.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is down at the Cape. If you guys have ever seen like Summer Catch, or it's a very well-known destination area, especially for New Englanders, but also New Yorkers and stuff as well, for summer homes. But there's also a lot of people that live there permanently as well. So we went ahead and we acquired this piece of real estate. It's a nice little home. These sellers were actually going through a divorce. So this was like their last hurrah. They were like, all right, we're gonna try to live together, but then they ended up deciding to get divorced. They decided to go ahead and use a bunch of Home Depot credit cards in order to fix up this property. So it was fully rehabbed when we acquired it. But they started, and what I'm going to show you is they started to become behind on payments, and also they now had credit card debt that they needed to get out of. So I ended up calling on the seller. This was an expired listing. I ended up calling on this seller. It was like on maybe a Wednesday, and I had some questions for speaking directly to the wife. The wife was on the mortgage and title. The husband was just on title. So that meant as soon as we bought the property, we were only dealing with the wife. So that was important if you're dealing with anybody that's going through divorce. So with this, I talked to the seller on like a Wednesday. I had some questions for her. I ended up leaving, going to Texas, and I asked her like 1 or 2 questions like, hey, what's the least you'd be willing to take for the property? I stopped answering her. I came back from an event, and she talked herself down all the way from 425 to the price that we're going to share with you here right now. So
you were silent and she talked herself down.
100%. On one of our events, so we do 2 live events, one in March and one in September. And it was like a year or 2 ago. On one of our live events, I brought the emails. It was like 14 pages of me not responding just because I was gone. I was in an event. And she talked herself all the way down. So that's how we knew, obviously, the motivation was extremely high there as well. So we purchased it for $355,941. That did include the installment. So when I wrote installment sale, the way an installment sale works is you're going to acquire the property, title's going to transfer, but there's installment payments that are going to go to the seller after the title has already transferred. So what we agreed to is we paid, I think, 3 payments of $5,000 for 3 years in a row. We negotiated that so that way the sellers had some money to pay towards their credit cards. That's what they ended up doing.
Okay.
We sold it for $425. If I looked at the market now, I mean, the house is worth like 5 something.
Oh, wow.
But we actually resold it on owner financing here in a minute. So I'm going to show you guys the breakdown of a 29-month deal, just so we can see the numbers and feel out how our creative financing deals work, knowing that I'll explain later how we ended up creating a much longer term deal that's a lot more profits. So we sold it through a lease option. So that's how we tend to exit. So a buyer comes in, they give us a non-refundable deposit. They now have the option to purchase the property for a certain period of time. And in the meantime, they're treated like a homeowner. They still have their own mortgage. So they take care of the entire property. You're not getting called for tenants, toilets, or trash. They just handle everything because they're in the process of becoming a homeowner. And then what we ended up doing is we ended up selling it instead to owner financing. So this buyer came in with, it was actually $31,000 up front before they came in the house, and then 2 $5,000 payments throughout the course of the lease. So our aim was to get her to 10%. We knew that we had the ability to finance this property and become the bank. But we also, with all of our buyers, we always try to get them to 10% or higher because they're able to get better loans, because this $41,000 is credited towards the purchase price when they actually acquire their property or get a loan for the property, or it's non-refundable if they don't go ahead and exercise that option. So we collected $41,000. Our monthly payment to the seller's bank. Remember, we make all of our payments directly to the bank, even though the mortgage is not in our name. We get the login information. We make all the payments online so we can control the property. That payment is $2,024 a month. That's an interest rate on this property is 3.5% interest rate on this property, which is important because nobody can get 3.5% interest rate right now for any loans.
Wow.
We're collecting $2,497. Yeah, go ahead, Cal.
Okay, no, you just answered my question. All right, so we're good. Yep.
Collecting $2,497. So our monthly cash flow on this property is $473 a month.
That's awesome.
So $13,000 in cash flow. Because remember, the way in which we structure our deals is we've acquired the property, so we take on all the responsibilities, but then when we sell it to a tenant buyer, now we're passing along all the responsibilities to that tenant buyer. So now that is strictly cash flow. There's no expense or overhead on that house. So that's $13,000. So we marked up this house $69,000. We're getting $569 in principal pay down per month. So we're making the mortgage payment to the bank. And every time we make that mortgage payment, $569 is coming directly off the principal balance of that mortgage.
That's awesome.
So over 29 months, it's $16,000 in principal pay down. For all the smart real estate investors out there, they're saying, hey, $569, isn't that going to go up over time? Yes, it will. We just took the average, took that $569 principal payment of when we started making the payment for this example purposes.
Got it.
So we already collected 41,000. So our back end profit is $44,000 for the 29 months. So that's what we call our payday 3. That was assuming that this buyer went and exercised their option, which then created some additional profits. This property was in arrears, $4,100. So when we're acquiring properties, especially, and this one, I'll just give you an example. So when we're acquiring properties, what we're typically doing is, because we're collecting non-refundable deposits, we're then taking a portion of those non-refundable deposits, and now we have them in reserves or for investments. We just took it from one deal and we moved it to this deal, $4,100. So that way we can acquire this. It doesn't account in this example. It's not accounting for closing costs. You could throw another like $2,000 to $3,000 in closing costs as well. So here's our total profit on this deal. It's $95,000 in 29 months.
29 months. That's amazing, man. All right. So what I want to do now is I want to see this thing as an Airbnb as well. So what was the cash that you had to bring to get the property, or was it only monthly payments?
So what we need to bring to the table is we had to put down the $4,100 in arrears.
Okay.
Closing costs. So that's, we'll say $6,000 we're all in there. And then we had installments, but the installments didn't happen until 12 months afterwards. So we had the buyer's money in order to make those installments.
So really $6,000.
$6,000 to acquire this property. Yep.
It's amazing. Okay. So this, and guys, this is why I want to bring this to your attention, is because yes, short-term rentals are awesome, but what if you found a house like this and someone was willing to sell it to you on terms and it didn't work as an Airbnb? Maybe the place was regulated. Maybe it didn't have enough data. Maybe you tried it for a couple months and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not cash flowing. It's not working. This is an amazing option for you on the back end. Now I'm going to show you here in a second what I think it would have done as an Airbnb as well. But one question that I have is, well, first of all, a clarifying question, because someone posted it in the comments here. They asked, how hard is it to do with having a bad credit or without having to have a credit check? I mean, that's the wonderful thing about this, right? Is that we're not getting credit checked. We're talking to a seller. They're not asking us for our credit score, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's not even in a conversation, especially if you're utilizing our scripts, posturing. I mean, it's also why a lot of people join our community, and that's because that's never brought up in the conversation of, hey, I'm going to go ahead and give you my credit. What we always say is, we're real estate investors and we acquire properties.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, we just need to solve their problem. So if you solve their problem, it doesn't matter if you're doing short-term rentals or credit financing. It's first you need to solve the seller's problem. We solved the seller's problem. They were in a debt relief position where if they got one more arrear payment, then they were going to start the pre-foreclosure process. They didn't want to handle that. They didn't want that on their credit. Secondly, this property expired off the market. So they've already tried the traditional route and they failed. So now their only other option is they either rent this house or they go try to put it back on the market. But because of the arrears and they didn't have the ability to make that next payment, that kind of eliminated that. So now we were their only option. That's why that conversation continued to transpire. And that's why we got a really killer deal on this. Yep. And I want people to think this is like unicorn deals. This isn't. This is a consistent sub-2 type transaction. And that's why Kyle asked me to come on here, because right now sub-2s are probably one of the most important techniques to learn if you want to maximize your real estate investment over the next 3 to 5 years. And
reason being is because that exact scenario that you just mentioned, there's just going to be more people in those situations right now, especially ones that bought their house in 2021 at the peak. And now their situation changes. And as real estate has kind of just gradually started to come down, they probably don't want to sell for a loss, and you can come in and solve that problem. So
nobody does, Kyle. Yeah. I know some of the wealthiest people in the world, and they still won't come to the table. They still won't come to the table with money. Yep. It's really quick here, Zach, I went ahead and did my own pro forma on this as a short-term rental. And, if you're thinking, hey, 29 months, that's awesome, make $90,000, but I want to own real estate for the long term, and I want to, make sure that I'm getting as much cash flow as possible. I went ahead and looked at this. Now, one thing about this area
was that there wasn't a ton of data. So I had to do my best. But what I got down to is that I think because it's a really nice house, we're probably furnishing for about $20,000. I'll zoom in a little bit here just so it's easier for everyone to see. Probably furnishing for about $20,000. We're probably finishing up with consumables and amenities and another $5,000. And Zach, you told me that you bought it for $6,000. So literally furnishing and buying a house, we're at $31,000 all in. That's, I mean, most of you that are looking at the arbitrage model, this is equal and better to the arbitrage model because now you're also paying down debt on a home that's yours. Mortgage, like you said, Zach, 2024. Utilities threw in some numbers that I think are pretty much, standard across the board. So we're at almost $3,000 of expenses for the month. And I saw about $250 per night and at about a 65% occupancy rate. That means we're making about $5,500 per month gross. After paying for everything, you're making $2,500 net. You're making money back year one, plus not including the debt that you're paying down on the property. And again, you're getting all the tax advantages. You get the cost segregation advantages that you get with short-term rentals. And you know what? Even if you decide after 3 years you want to sell it, would you say that property is probably worth now, Zach? It's probably worth more than
I want to go based on Zillow, but Zillow has it right now like 578.
Yeah. So, I mean, buy it for 355, sell it for 578. You do the math there, guys, after realtor fees. That's a big payday, along with cash flowing a ton during that process. So, and by the way, this calculator is absolutely free for you to use. If you're not using it, just go to fearlesskyle.com/calculator and you can download it for free. Zach, thanks for showing us this, man. Let me see if I got any questions, but anything else that you want to add before we wrap this up here?
Yeah, just on that deal, what we ended up doing, this buyer was actually looking to, she was in the process of becoming an attorney. So what we ended up doing is she ended up coming up with a 41,000. So now what we did is we count that as her down payment. We created a new mortgage. It's also known as like a wrap mortgage.
Right.
And we created it for 7.5% interest rate, which actually isn't insane because some buyers right now are going in with 20% down at high sixes, if not high sevens.
Oh yeah.
So she's getting a pretty good deal there as well. She just pays all the closing costs. So we're creating an arbitrage spread of about 4% because that interest rate's at 3.5%. The amortization, it's on the back end. So we're now probably at like year 17, 18, something like that.
Yeah.
And she's got a brand new mortgage at 7.5%. So if she stays in with us forever, then in the next 13 years, that's gonna be a debt-free house. We're just collecting 7.5% interest until she pays us off. So that's another way. I'm just wanted to include that as well because that's another way in order to create long-term cash flow.
Yeah.
Because the thing that tends to get brought up when people with creative financing and rent to own, they're always like, I don't want to keep turning over these deals. These are ways in order to have long-term cash flow without having to be a landlord if that's not something you want to do.
That's awesome, man. Relly asks a question. I'm not quite sure in terms of the wording, but I think what he's asking is the deposit from the buyer. Does that include the down payment plus closing costs?
So the deposit from the buyer, it's a lease with the option to buy. So it's just a non-refundable deposit. There's no closing costs associated with that. That non-refundable deposit will be credited at the time of purchase when they actually go get their loan. Because right now we're placing a buyer in the house. We as investors have a non-refundable deposit. It goes right in a HIP National Bank. You keep it. Then that buyer is now a very specific plan in order to get them to a point where they can be mortgage ready. We do a lot of due diligence on the beginning part. And at the end, they then get connected with a mortgage lender. We show them the non-refundable deposit that has to all be sourced. Everything's closed with an attorney. And then they go get their loan, and then it becomes a traditional sale at that point in time. So then they come back to us, and now title transfers to them because now they have their own loan. They pay us off, and now the original loan gets paid off at that time.
And what's great about the lease option side of it too is because you're still the owner, you're getting all the tax benefits too.
Yep,
so
100%.
It's a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing. Zach, again, guys, if you want to get started with Zach, or you want to learn more about what Zach and his team are doing, you can do two things. You can go Google or just go to smartrealestatecoach.com, right? It's probably the best place if they just want to learn more about what you guys are doing and check out your podcasts. And then if you're actually wanting to get something scheduled to learn more about Zach and his program, go to fearlesskyle.com/pick your coach. And you'll see Zach Beach at the bottom there that you can schedule a call with them. So Zach, anything else that we missed?
No, that's your best option. So if you go to Fearless Kyle, it's going to give you the ability to set up a strategy call, which you're going to have probably specific questions from this. And it's like, all right, now let's have a conversation and see if Creative Finance can help you increase your portfolio, help you do your first deals, help you build your portfolio. It's a great place to start. And then also you'll be into our pipeline because we do, free trainings all the time, like workshops. We have our books available and stuff like that. So if this is the beginning of your journey, great place to start. Let our people know that's from Kyle. And that way we can continue to keep coming on these calls and start showing you guys how to buy and sell real estate creatively and have an extremely profitable 2023.
All right. Well, Zach, thanks for showing us the wicked smart way to buy some properties today. We appreciate it, man.
I appreciate you too, everyone else. And thanks for stopping by, and I look forward to spending some more time with you here in the future.
Thanks, guys.